I love the way the industry is maturing and the way games are getting so deep and complex, and how the scores are getting deeper and more complex, but still you can have fun.
So today I have the incredible honor of speaking with the renowned Eímear Noone. Eímear is an award-winning composer and conductor, perhaps best known for a groundbreaking work in the video game industry. She's conducted some of the world's most prestigious orchestras and brought to life the music of iconic franchises, including World of Warcraft, The Legend of Zelda, and Diablo. In 2020, she made history as the first woman to conduct the orchestra at the Academy Awards. Eímear is not only a visionary artist, but a passionate advocate for women in music and tech. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, Brady. This is really, really special.
Awesome. Well, to get started, I always like to ask, how did you get started in the music industry? Was there a certain moment where, you just knew you wanted to pursue a career in the arts?
Well, I knew from when I was a little kid, and I don't come from a family of musicians, so I was just this oddball kid in the Irish countryside who fell in love with the orchestra, and that was it. And I really, it was always really visceral for me, where I'd listen to a piece of music and all of a sudden I've got goosebumps, and I wanted to know why that was happening and how it was happening. And everybody knows that feeling. But for me as a kid, I was like, wow, what is this? And how do I become a part of it?
Awesome. So on that journey, did you get started with instruments, or did you always know you wanted to, do composition and conducting?
Yeah, no, I did. I actually am from an area of Ireland that's famous for traditional Irish music. So when we were at, kindergartners, we were handed tin whistles, the penny whistle, and we would have all started off playing our traditional Irish tunes. And actually, my village had a really famous composer, and I've actually said this multiple times, that in a tiny village, fewer than 500 people. When someone kicked the ball out of the yard, the schoolyard, it would be more likely than not, the local composer would kick it back. Mm-hmm. And even though his area of music was different to mine, in that he was a trad, as we say here in Ireland, a trad composer, and we adored each other. He passed away a couple of years ago at 102.
Wow.
But the parity of respect, but also to be surrounded by traditional music really, really early on. And people who loved music, but also it was, hey, composer, that's a thing. You're a little kid and you're like, mm-hmm. Oh, there's Paddy Fahy, the composer. And so you're like, in a small area, you're like, you can be a teacher, a farmer, a doctor, a composer, a banker. Yeah. Those were the people I knew, so it was a thing you could be. But I did start, then I started playing classical piano from when I was about, I suppose, 6 or 7, and later on classical flute, which became my primary instrument, was the classical transverse. That's a very pompous name for it, but just the concert flute, which I absolutely loved, and I ended up getting a scholarship to our Conservatory of Music in Dublin, which I held for 8 years, and I studied piano as well for all through my childhood and teens and into college. But I mean, it was always that I really, really loved music that made me feel something, or music that was very easy for me to explain to my dad. Mm-hmm. My dad grew up surrounded by traditional Irish music, and, what he knew about orchestras was that I loved them, mm-hmm. And he'd call me down and say, look, there's this fella in tales on the TV from Vienna. You might like this, you know. So what meant a lot to me was that I could put together a concert where my dad, my aunts, my cousins could all come to the concert, and without me explaining anything or using any words, they would instantly understand what I was getting at, you know. And that to this day, that means a lot to me, that you can have an audience of people who really, really know orchestral music, down to people who've never heard an orchestra in their lives, and to people who have heard orchestra but didn't realize that's what it was they were listening to. And you know, I love this mixed audience. It's you know, people ask me questions all the time who aren't musicians that are really, really mind-blowing, or that make me think differently about music, or that take me out of, you know, the box of the done thing and the norm. You know, it's often someone outside of professional music that will make me think differently about music.
That's amazing. Yeah. And kind of on that note, you talked about meeting a lot of people that aren't from the music industry. You obviously have a huge footprint in gaming. How did you get started doing that?
By accident. I get asked this all the time, but you know what? It's by accident and it's not. I have to say, now that I think about it. I started writing atonal and serial music, really sort of artsy, contemporary classical music, from when I was about 15, 16. And I got to study with some amazing composers in those areas. But I remember one of my favorite composers at the time, and to this day, a Finnish composer, Kalevi Aho, who writes contemporary art music, saying, you know, be careful of boxing yourself in by saying there are too many I can't do this. I can't write a melody. I can't write using harmonic language. I can't, you know, I can't use tonality, rather, is what I meant to say. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't write a big tune. I can't, you know. And if you surround yourself by so many I can'ts, you're not left with a whole lot, and you've boxed yourself in. And that was, I was about 17 when I heard that lecture he gave to us in a small room. And it made a profound effect, because I think I want to experience all of these different sounds. So I found myself going towards film music initially, and, you know, orchestral crossover, which is really, really fun for me. I remember a big deal for me was buying the Metallica S&M album, where Michael Kamen had worked with Metallica to create this absolutely incredible project. My brother and I destroyed the CD and DVD, with the DVD set, destroyed it from overuse, you know. But it was really getting started in the industry. Was I loved music that told a story, painted a picture. In classical music, we call that program music. So you're thinking of Berlioz' Symphonie Fantastique, and I often describe contemporary video game music as like film music meets Berlioz. So because it's very, very pictorial, it's very visual, and you can visualize without actually seeing any pictures or visuals or video footage. You can visualize so much just by hearing, and I loved that. So that's what took me into, first of all, hearing this lecture about not boxing yourself in, discovering also scores like James Horner's Willow, where I remember as a kid hearing it and going, what? You can have penny whistles and uilleann pipes and all of these traditional Irish instruments and bodhráns with the orchestra. I didn't think that was allowed, you know. And it's funny, because that's very much a thing in World of Warcraft, is mixing ethnic instruments with the orchestra, and it became a very much a trademark of what James Horner was doing in the 90s with scores like Braveheart and, you know, things like that. So all of that took me to, I was taking a course that was given by UCLA Extension in Dublin, which was kind of random, and it was on film scoring. And in my very first year in music college, in Trinity College in Dublin, I was after a choir rehearsal. So the choir, the chapel choir, was mostly music students and ex-choral scholars from the cathedral choirs, because we all had to sight read. We had to sight sing different repertoire every week. So one of the fourth years, when I was in first year, a guy called David Downs came into the college bar after he knew we'd all be at chapel choir rehearsal. So he knew where to find us, in the pub after rehearsal. I can hear anyone who's ever been in a choir nodding, listening to this. So he asked us, guys, what are you doing tomorrow, or the next day? Do you want to earn some beer money? So we were all like, yeah, what do we have to do? So I remember very clearly sitting on a floor in a studio in Dublin that I don't even know if it exists anymore, but I remember with a pencil and just staff paper. I'm an alto, so there I was fixing my alto part, and we were all working on the parts because it had to be done fast. And we recorded this stuff, and that was that. So about 6 months later, my brother called me in a panic, and he goes, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, did you work on Metal Gear Solid?" And I was like, "No." "What are you talking about?" And I'll never forget it. He goes, "I'm here with the lads, and we're looking at your credit on screen." It's funny. I've had a member of the public send me a screen grab of that, because I had actually never seen it. So actually, David Downs, that same guy, went on to create Celtic Woman, a show that just turned 20 years old. So that was that. And I continued with this UCLA extension course alongside my degree in music. And I was studying conducting at the same time with some pretty prestigious, amazing maestros. The next thing that happened was right after I finished college, LA, they sent over an LA orchestrator who worked a lot with Danny Elfman and worked a lot with Basil Polydorus, who scored the Conan movie and a whole lot of those kinds of things. And he was the arranger for Tori Amos, who I loved. And he hired me as his assistant based on my work in the class. And, it turned out that there was this video game that was happening that was using Conan as sort of the template for its score. And he said, "Look, you can work on this with me. We'll train you up on this." And they don't have the budget for me because he's used to massive movie budgets. And this thing was recording in a college, in Azusa College in California, and the choir was going to be students. It was recording on their campus studio, which was actually an amazing studio. So I worked on it with this composer who I really liked, called Jason Hayes. It was Jason's first. Hello, Jason in Nashville. Jason lived in Nashville for a good while. Jason, it was his first orchestral score, and it was my first job. So I was the orchestrator on most of it. I remember being in the studio and looking up. I was about, 23 at the time, looking up at the monitor, and it was the first time I'd seen the cinematic, and it was for World of Warcraft. And it was the first World of Warcraft, and I remember thinking, oh my God, this is different and special, and kind of getting goosebumps. There was that feeling of this is important. After that, the budgets went up. There was no recording in colleges. It was really fun to be there with Jason, who, of course, we're still friends. He went on to lots and lots of different things as well. But that was my first two accidental credits, and they were two accidentally epic ones. Yeah. So, it kind of, I had to stand back and go, then I went on to work in film for a long time, but until Blizzard brought me back. And it was sort of fate in a way. It's like if two mega AAAs are your accidental first gigs in music, you know. Maybe you should listen to that. But it was cool because it was, you know, it was that sort of very ancient kind of style where you could mix. I love the wow sound, which, you know, we would mix all kinds of mad percussion instruments and ethnic instruments with the orchestra. Felt like mixing the rough and the smooth was really fun. But yeah, that was the start.
That's amazing. Yeah, one of my first memories growing up was not World of Warcraft, but was Diablo 2. So I've loved
Oh wow.
Blizzard since I was a kid. Um, yeah, that's incredible. Um,
I have a good Diablo 3 story actually. Um, we recorded the Hell Choir was recorded in Dublin with a choir
mhm,
called Anuna, and there was a guy in the choir called Andrew Hosier, and I remember driving my car in LA a few years later, and I'm hearing this fantastic song, and I'm thinking, finally, someone can write lyrics. Take me to church, I worship like a dog at the shrine of yellow. And it said, you know, by Hosier, and I was like, I wonder if he's related to Andrew. You know, in Los Angeles, not thinking back in Dublin, you know.
yeah.
Yeah, Hosier was in the choir, and that choir since then, I mean, they were already a legendary group. They were the original Riverdance choir, and their director, Michael McGlynn, is stunning talent. But they have gone and worked extensively with Japanese game composers in particular who've fallen in love with the Celtic, in particular the vocal sound that's unique to that group. But Diablo 3, we recorded the Hell Choir in Dublin, and then we went over to Abbey Road, and the Heaven Choir were like the Knights Templar, this very muscular,
Mhm.
masculine type of sound. And oh, talk about indulgence. It was like we were kids in the candy shop, you know,
Yeah,
thanks to the Blizzard gang. So much fun.
that's awesome. Yeah, kind of going in a little bit of a different direction. We've touched on this a bit, but you know, music throughout time often tells a story. You think of like classical operas and different things, and even just like symphonies that people are familiar with. There's often like a story behind that. But obviously, with video games, there's that added medium of like visuals and interaction. How do you feel like that changes the composition process, or does it?
Well, I mean, composers have been using visuals either overtly or as inspiration forever. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, the number of you know, even if you think of Mussorgsky's pictures at an exhibition, you know, I mean, that's a really obvious example, but composers have done it forever. And also composers have worked with different media forever. I mean, one of the examples that I think of my musical life as the 21st century of sort of his musical life, except I don't work for a
Mhm.
king, is Lully and his collaboration with Louis XIV, where he had to score everything and anything, including, you know, throwing a couple of timpani on the back of a horse and scoring the king's hunt with your crumb horns and your timpani, and then, you know, scoring his dinner, you know,
Mhm.
and then collaborating with him on, because he loved to dance, on creating this new dance medium called ballet, and, you know, creating operas and working with the mechanisms that they used to call them, these incredible, you know, backdrops and machines. And it was, you know, very visual. So, you know, this is a guy who had to score absolutely everything, including church music and religious music, absolute music for the concert hall, music for balls, music for state occasions. You know, it's no different to how we approach scoring. You know, it's a collaborative medium. We're all trying to tell the story together. So what you're trying to do is enhance what's there, or help the player ingest it or be present in the moment, and also to help people know how, what direction their feelings could be going in. I mean, I don't want to say you want to lead people, but you're there to help them interpret what's going on around them in a very kind of osmosis type of way. And it's a real privilege, I have to say. I absolutely love the gaming community, and I love the video game music community particularly. And no matter where I go, and I, do all kinds of projects in different areas, I always say this, I'll always serve this audience, no matter what. It's just a really, really special audience. And we get to, it's a very intelligent audience and a very curious, intellectually curious audience, which is special. And it's a very diverse audience as well. The gaming audience is very diverse. It's very, it's an honor to be a part of it, and create for it and perform for that group of people.
That's amazing. Yeah. Switching gears a little bit again, the video game industry has this reputation for being very male dominant. As a woman in that field, how can we increase that inclusion, that diversity in the space? What are your takes on that?
Well, everybody needs a champion. And you can be a champion for a young female artist in any area of the industry. But everybody needs a champion. I mean, that goes for guys as well. However, it's particularly needed. I mean, we're definitely not nearly equal. It does make me cringe. I'll be very honest about this. It makes me cringe when I see a picture of a big music department in a big studio with no women in it. There's literally no need for that. There's so many talented female composers out there, and there's so many talented up and comers and women coming out of college, and even getting people in on the internship level and thinking up the career. And sometimes I worry about a sort of a backlash to the Me Too movement. Me Too movement was absolutely necessary and had to happen, but I worry about there being a backlash and people being overly careful or fearful. That's not necessary. I mean, that's convenient in some ways to feel like that, but being a champion, I mean, in our house, we don't just, I'm not just talking the talk here. I collaborate on everything with my husband, Craig Stewart Garfinkel, and we created a free mentorship for one female composer at a time. And our mentee is about to start her master's at one of the major music departments for film and game music in a couple of weeks. So when she's done with us, we'll bring on somebody else. And we take one at a time, completely free. But you can be a champion for someone. By the way, I'm not letting her go. I'm going to keep looking over her shoulder for the rest of her career. She's really, really special, really hardworking, talented. So Craig and I know that when I did the Oscars, for instance, my champions were 2 women and 2 men. 2 men from the music side of things and 2 women producers. And I would not have been there without the 4 of them. Mm-hmm. And everybody needs a champion. So be a champion and it's the whole thing of be the change you want to see. Do what you can. And if you can help a young artist, or those of us that are composing all the time. I mean, I have so many female colleagues that I love of my age group, and I program their music and concerts all the time. I mean, in Nashville, I have a couple of my favorites on the program. I know off the top of my head, I definitely have some of my friend Pinar Toprac's music on there. She worked on Fortnite, and she also scored Captain Marvel. She's a Marvel composer. She's a marvelous composer, even. But I always have at least two other women besides myself on my programs. So it's we do what we do what we can, but it's not a also. For me, I am really careful about what I put in front of the audience, what I put in front of the orchestra. It has to be excellent. There's no charity involved.
Right.
I'm not that nice, and but it's excellent work, and I adore my composer colleagues, all genders, and I'm delighted to present their work on the stage. And it's a way of getting to know your friends that's very interesting and deep and different, deep in a different way. But almost all of the composers on the concert in Nashville will be people that I know and have a great affection for. But most of us came up together, and then there's some lovely new friends I met because I heard some of their music and went, "Hey, can we perform this? This is fantastic," you know. But it's a wonderful. That's the other thing about the video game music community. It's not just the fans and the audience, but the composers. Most of us, I always joke, most of us are still alive. That actually is a plus. But the other thing is, most of us are friends and colleagues, and I love a mixed program where there's colleagues from Japan, the UK, Spain, France, Pinar is Turkish. You know, I mean, it's a really international crew, and you can hear that in the music, and that's necessary. You know, we need diversity. We need diverse ways at looking at stories, and the audience deserves that. You know, the audience deserves spice. You know, all the flavors. That's what we want. We don't want everything sounding the same or more of the same. Or so it's. That's what I always think. If you start from the perspective of doing your best for the audience, I mean, do you really just want music from half of the population? Or, you know, is bringing more, you know, different perspectives, different flavors, different experience. I was watching a TED talk from another conductor today who was talking about how you know, there in science, you can somebody if Sir Isaac Newton, and I'm paraphrasing, Sir Isaac Newton didn't discover what he discovered, somebody else would have discovered it, because science is there to be discovered. But if certain artists were never born, and if Lennon and McCartney are never born, nobody would have written Yesterday. You know, it's not the same. It's each artist it is uniquely themselves and different, and brings everything about them to the project and to the music. They bring their cultural identity, their gender identity, their whatever music they grew up listening to, what era that was, what drew them to. I mean, like when I was a kid, it was all about Stravinsky and Metallica, and to me, those were one and the same, you know. And you know, it's you want all of that diversity, because you want as much great music to listen to as possible, and you want the gaming experience. And I love the way the industry is maturing, and the way games are getting so deep and complex, and how the scores are getting deeper and more complex, but still you can have fun as well. You can, you know, we can get complex and serious, but we can also have a lot of fun. And at the end of the day, the human spirit loves play. And that's something that, you know, I'm always reminded of is I'm not doing brain surgery. Nobody's going to die if, you know, but I want to make sure that the people on the other end of this music are having fun.
For sure. Well, we're just about out of time. Um, I just want to let everyone viewing know that you can go see Eímear and the Nashville Symphony coming up soon, I believe on September 12th, if I'm not mistaken. So please go check that out.
Yeah, and we have a surprise as well. I'm not going to announce the surprise yet
Ooh,
because we're in Music City. So come on, I had to pull a surprise out.
for
But
sure.
one thing that isn't a surprise is that I have the amazing Carly Smithson singing a couple of things with us. Carly is in a band called We Are the Fallen, and she's also, of course, an American Idol alum. So she's just absolutely incredible rock vocalist. And again, going back, we've known each other since we were teenagers in Dublin.
That's
So
amazing.
that's going to be really, really special. And there's another surprise as well, but I'm going to leave that hang for a little while.
Awesome. Well, I'll be looking forward to it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Brady. Thanks for having me.
Yes, thanks.